Okay, what I wanted to show you is just a couple of ear protection devices here. Earmuffs, which most people are familiar with. These particular ones here, the one thing I like about earmuffs, they're really pretty hard to screw up. I mean, no matter how you put them on, unless you actually damage the seal here of the earmuffs, there shouldn't be any problems. It's just a matter of putting on, make sure that you're just covering up the ears. That's all there is to it. These particular earmuffs are actually kind of heavy duty. Most of them aren't this big, but this one here provides quite a bit of protection. Almost as good as an earmuff are earplugs. The most effective ones are foam earplugs. So they might look something like this. Okay, this just looks like a little barrel. It's a polymer foam. To actually insert the earplug here, all you have to do, excuse me, is to roll it up, just go like this. I like to use 2 fingers. Just roll it back and forth. Don't do it in opposite directions, but in the same direction. So it's nice and skinny, like this. Then what you do is just go ahead, reach over your head, pull up your ear, and insert it like this, let it go, hold it for a few seconds, and that's all there is to it. Notice here that you don't even really notice that much. If I turn to the side of the head, you can see it, and that's a pretty good fit. Another very similar plug is this one right here, but it inserts exactly the same way. I kind of like the orange ones here. They're a little more comfortable than the yellow ones, but they're both equally as effective. Now, for those people who might be hunters, there are hunter earplugs, and these particular ones, they don't provide any protection until you actually shoot the rifle or gun, and then they kick in. This one looks like an in-the-ear hearing aid. See if you can hold it up here. Okay, so it looks like a regular hearing aid. Fits in the ear like this. Okay, now how this particular hearing protection device works, it actually has an amplifier, so it actually makes sounds louder so you can hear better when everything is quiet. However, what happens is as soon as you fire your rifle, it automatically switches off that hearing aid portion of it, and then it functions as, just as you're firing, it goes from a hearing aid essentially to a ear protection device or an earplug. Because what it does when you fire it, it essentially turns off the electronics on there and makes it into a earplug. If anybody's interested on this, there's this style and there's other styles as well, and I can go ahead and show it to you on an individual basis. Okay. So that's pretty much it in terms of protecting yourself with earplugs and also with earmuffs. Probably the best way, though, and from terms of a noise-induced hearing loss, is just avoid loud noises in the first place. Okay. Give me a second here. I'm actually doing this on my computer. I just want to make sure that we are going back here. Okay, there we are, noise-induced hearing loss. The second type of hearing loss that I would like to talk about, sensorineural hearing loss, is something called presbycusis. We're going to talk about this when we get more in detail, when we get to the section on people who are elderly, because since this is a condition which affects people who are typically elderly. Presbycusis is nothing more than an age-related hearing loss. If we live long enough, everybody will experience this. Not a big deal, but there are some things that you can hopefully slow the rate of growth in terms of, when I mean rate of growth, I mean the rate of hearing loss as you get older. One of them is to avoid loud noises. Now you're thinking, wait, this is age-related hearing loss. What does noise have to do with this? Well, it is possible you can have a cumulative effect. That is, you might have presbycusis might getting worse, and then on top of it, you could have a noise-induced hearing loss. So you could have both of those types, and by inserting that noise component or a noise induced hearing loss on top of the presbycusis is going to make things worse. So again, practice good prevention when you're looking at hearing loss. That's going to help. Another one is healthy lifestyles. People who exercise, people who, if they're drinking, is just in a very moderate amount, 1 or 2 drinks, that actually shows to slow down the rate of presbycusis. I'm not suggesting that you go out and drink. That's not really a good thing, but just a little bit can help your hearing. It's not one of those things either where you can make it up on the weekends and go through a 6-pack. That's not going to make your hearing any better. In fact, excessive alcohol can make it worse. So if you think of that, exercise, good blood flow, so to speak, anything that will improve blood circulation, which is exercise, is certainly vascular especially, can be very, very helpful. Low-fat diets, things like that are also helpful as well. This is kind of a gradual hearing loss. Actually, when we have our best hearing, is about people your age. You have really good hearing. You can hear up to 20,000 hertz for most cases. However, as you become older then, is that those high frequencies start to drop out. When I say older, like 25 or 30. However, because they're above the range of speech sounds, is we don't even notice them occurring. Okay, so it's not up until you get about 50, 60, 70 years old before you start to notice difficulty hearing people speak. Again, it starts off in the high frequencies, just like kind of the noise-induced hearing loss. Starts off in the high frequency and it just gradually becomes worse. There are some gender differences. That is, males typically have worse hearing than females because of presbycusis. Also, there's racial differences. Blacks tend to have better hearing when they're elderly than people who are Caucasian. So those are a couple things in terms of presbycusis. But ultimately, you can slow it down, but you really can't stop the process. Fortunately, while again there's not any treatment per se, you can use such things as hearing aids, which will make the sound louder, which a lot of people are very successful on that. Not only are they successful on it, but you find that hearing aids are much, much better than they used to be. Okay, noise-induced hearing loss, presbycusis. The third thing we want to talk about here is genetic or congenital hearing losses. Now, these are two different things. Genetic means you're inheriting that gene from your parent, your grandparents, or whoever. And if you happen to have a gene for hearing loss, then you're going to have a hearing loss. Okay. Congenital hearing loss just means that you're born with a hearing loss. Now, it is possible that you can be born with the hearing loss and it's not genetic. In fact, about 90% of all significant hearing losses which are congenital, that is, you're born with a hearing loss, come with parents who have no history of hearing loss or congenital problems at all. I'm sorry, genetic problems. So it just happens. It's just like one day that, oh my gosh, a child doesn't hear. And this is why it's so important, and we'll talk about this later too, about different types of hearing tests, that you have your child tested at birth. In fact, most hospitals, vast majority of hospitals in Wisconsin will test your child's hearing at birth. Okay, and we'll talk a little bit more about the tests that they use and what to do in terms of follow-up should you find that there is a problem.